Diddy got sentenced over the week, innit? Diddy got sentenced over the weekend. I'm sure some of you guys are aware that Diddy, aka Sean Combs, got sentenced over the weekend to more than 4 years in prison. I think they said when it comes to prison maps and shit, I think they were saying that there's a possibility with good behavior and everything else that he comes out this time next year. That's why I read online. Don't read into what I'm reading into. I'm just a nobody. But from what I've heard from people who know about prison maths, they said there's a possibility that Diddy gets out this time, which is October next year, 2026. Which, you know, is a decent enough situation considering his charges, considering all the stuff that came out about him, considering the level of the crime that he did. I think all in all it's pretty decent. Now, he's not happy, obviously, because he thought he was coming home. Because this whole sentencing was a mad thing. Number one, they put out some weird video that they played in court, like an 11-minute video, kind of compilation home movie, showing how great of a father he is, entrepreneur, businessman, cultural figure, icon, all this stuff, right? So it was a montage drinking, really interesting. And then the other thing that came out during the court case was that he had his kids come up and basically give him testimony, I don't know, a report or whatever, speak highly of him, right? A character reference, whatever it was, right? Which is really strange, putting your kids up for that. Considering the severity of the crimes he's been accused of, putting your kids up to do that sort of thing is just bizarre, but he did it anyway. But the other thing that was really odd, which I was like, oh my God, what a bad move. It came out during his court case, during his sentencing, sorry, that he had a speaking engagement scheduled for next week in Florida, in Miami. He had a fucking, like a speaking arrangement, some sort of live podcast, whatever. When I heard of it, I immediately thought it was going to be valuetainment. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. But when I heard he had a speaking engagement in Florida, I immediately thought, I bet that's valuetainment. I bet that's fucking PBD. I bet that's fucking Paul Bet Davidson. I bet that's fucking it is, right? Or Paul Bet fucking David. I bet that's fucking him. But when the judge heard that, he was not happy. When the judge heard that, he was not happy. It kind of showed that he has no remorse. You know what I mean? He's thinking he's going to get out on that same day. Fucking crazy move to make. But I wonder if that also showed that even someone like a Diddy, who was a reported billionaire before he went to prison, even he was struggling for money. After all the attorney fees he'd been paying to try and fight this case, which his attorneys did pretty well, to be fair. I think two of his lawyers got up on the stand and basically cried in front of court, which is fucking crazy. So it goes to show you just how much money can do, right? You got two, you know, especially like a Brian Still, the guy that got fucking Young Thug off of his case, going up in front of court and crying in your defense. So they did a good job. But they couldn't get him out. They couldn't get him out. And he decided to book that thing. I was like, wow, man. That just goes to show you what type of person he is. But also it goes to show you just how much money it must cost to defend yourself at this sort of level. That he had a speaking arrangement organized for the following week to get straight back working again. It kind of shows you where things are. Anyway, let's read the article courtesy of Sky News. It gives us more details. It says Sean Diddy Combs has been sentenced to more than 4 years in prison over prostitution charges relating to his former girlfriends and male sex workers. Judge Arun Subramanian handed down the 50-month sentence, including a $500 fine at the end of the long and emotional full day of hearing, which saw the hip-hop mogul speak out for the first time in court. By the way, I wonder why in prisons or in courtrooms, why they don't just give the sentence in years or months, years. Why do they give the sentence in months? Because they say 50 months. Why don't you say 4 years? I wonder why they do that. Is that a way to kind of dumb down or to kind of not make the sentence as harsh? Is that the way the system works? I wonder why they do that. Anyway, it continues. It says, Combs 55 admitted his past behavior was disgusting, shameful, and sick, and apologized personally to Cassie Ventura and Jane, another former girlfriend, who testified anonymously during the trial. But despite his plea for mercy and expressions of remorse, the judge told him he had abused his power and control with women he professed to love, and rejected the defense characterization that freak of sexual encounters were consensual experiences that was just a sex, drugs, and rock and roll story. Addressing Cassie and the other brave survivors who've come forward, the judge said, "We heard you. I can only say I can only say your families are proud of you and your children will be proud of you. You weren't just talking to the jury, you were talking to the women who feel powerless, who gave them a voice. You stood up for power. It's not easy." Combs showed no visible change of emotion as his sentence was delivered, looking straight ahead as the judge spoke. Afterwards, he seemed subdued with no sign of enthusiasm or feelings showed earlier in the day. There's a picture of some of his kids coming out in the courtroom. Ahead of their own speech, the court heard from 6 of his 7 children, causing the rapper to break down in tears as they spoke about how much they loved him and how he has changed and how much they and their younger 2.5 sisters need him. The sentencing brings to an end a sordid case that featured harrowing testimony, not just from Cassie and Jane, but also from former employees and associates of Combs. He was convicted in July of flying people around the US and abroad for sexual encounters, including his then girlfriends and male sex workers, in violation of prostitution laws. However, he was cleared of the most serious charge of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking that could have put him in jail for life. Here's some illustrations of him in court, cowering with his head in his hands as his kids gave testimony. On the eve of his sentencing, Combs submitted a letter to the judge, pleading for mercy and apologizing for the hurt and the pain he has caused. He expanded on his court, saying that he wanted to personally apologize to Cassie for the harm that he caused her emotionally and physically, and to Jane and other victims. He told the court that he got lost in my excess and lost in my ego, but since his time in prison, he has been humbled and broken to my core. Combs continued, I hate myself right now. I'm truly sorry for it all. There's his Combs' mum out in front of the court as well. Once one of the influential music figures, he's faced 20 years in prison. Prosecutors had argued that he spent the last 11 years, or at least 11 years behind bars. No, prosecutors argued he should spend at least 11 years behind bars, while Combs' lawyers were calling for him to be freed almost immediately due to time already served. Kirsty Salvik for prosecution, told the judge sparing the rapper serious jail time would excuse years of violence. The judge, who had rejected bail for the rapper several times before sentencing, told him that he would get through his time in prison. It would be hard, he said, but he still had a life afterwards. Combs has a chance to renewal and redemption. What went wrong can be made right. I'm counting on you to make the most of that second chance. Outside the court, journalists and onlookers swarmed the pavements as the TV crew stood in a long row across the street, echoing scenes of the 2-month-long trial. It concluded 4 days of testimony from Cassie, now Cassie Ventura Fine, who told the court that she was coerced and sometimes blackmailed into sexual encounters with male escorters, referred to as freak-offs. Cassie responds, jurors also shown video clips of Combs dragging and beating her in Los Angeles hotel. Combs referred to this in court, saying it was a heavy burden that he will forever carry and that he was sick with drugs and out of control. Ahead of the sentencing, Cassie also submitted a letter to the judge calling Combs a manipulator and saying she would fear for her safety should he be immediately released. Responding to the sentence, her lawyer Douglas Wigdor said, while nothing can be undone the trauma caused by Combs, the sentence imposed today recognizes the impact of the serious offenses he committed. We are confident that with the support of her family and friends, Miss Ventura will continue healing towards knowing that her bravery and fortitude have been inspirations to so many. So all in all, I think he got off. I think he got off with a light sentence in general. Obviously, he wasn't getting charged, or he wasn't in court for that beating video. And all the other stories from all the other people associated with him, saying some fucked up things of what he done, didn't really play in court either. So maybe the defense or prosecution, whatever, put too much on there in terms of charges. But I think in terms of sending out a signal, in terms of, teaching him a lesson, I think this is a big deal. This guy was living a very lavish, a very rich, a very affluent, a very privileged, a very highfalutin lifestyle before this. You'd imagine he thought he'd probably get away with it forever. And then to suddenly be in prison in your 50s when Diddy has never been in prison ever. I don't think Diddy's even got a criminal record. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's even have a criminal record. I don't think so anyway. But I know he hasn't spent a long time in prison. To go from being that rich of a guy, living in fucking mansions, being shuffled around in places, pouring, Ciroc everywhere, to now suddenly being in prison, it's going to humble him by force. Maybe beforehand, if he would have got released now, it wouldn't have. But I think actually spending time in prison will humble him. Spending time in jail sounds kind of miserable. Because I think he wrote in the letter, but in his jail cell is like 6 other people. He's in one of those big jail cells where you share like a room with 6 other people. I think in prison it's usually 1 or with 2 people. Or you and another person. Or maybe you by yourself. But I think him actually going to an actual prison having to wear the prison garb, all that malarkey, I think will definitely humble him. And hopefully, you'd hope for the better. It would kind of change his behavior and send a signal out to other people, especially in the music industry, who are doing the same shit, that you can't get away with it, and that this is probably your future, because who wants to be 50 and go into prison? You know what I mean? But for the victims, probably doesn't do much, I'd imagine. Doesn't do much for the victims. I think the fact that they were able to say and share their story and get it out there is the best thing possible. You know? Because I always say, I think when it comes to cancel culture and shit, the only way I think it really works with these people in high positions is that it exposes what they did in the dark in public. Because most of these people don't want people to know what they do in the dark, what they do in secret, what they do behind closed doors. So the fact that some of these victims are brave enough to come out and speak and say, hey, this and this happened to me, and that was a person who's responsible for it, I think is a big deal, because it casts a shadow, it casts doubt, and it's never going to be the same. Like, Diddy's going to come out in prison. I'm sure he's going to go on the podcast circuit. He's going to be making music again. He's going to be touring, but it's not going to be the same. It won't be the same. He'll feel the change in energy. I'm sure he even felt it when he was when the videos came out and stuff. I'm sure he felt the change in the energy of people. Like, it's just not going to be the same anymore. You're not going to have the same swagger. It's not going to be the same. It's fundamentally changed him. It's fundamentally broken him for the worse. And I think if you're a victim, you should seek some comfort in that, some solace in that. The prison sentence ain't gonna ever repair the pain and the hurt these people had to go through. But I think him being publicly chastised, being publicly called out like this, is a very good thing. Honestly, I think it's a very good thing. And I think overall, hopefully you hope it would inspire good behavior. I doubt it, to be honest, because it sounds like the music industry is just full of Diddies in various different levels. And I feel like for some of them, they kind of get away with it because some of them, similar to Harvey Weinstein, are like people of their word, right? Which is weird. People used to say that about Harvey, that allegedly, although he was a rapist, an abuser, and horrible person, that behind the scenes, he was actually a man of his word. So if he was telling an actress or whatever, hey, suck my dick and I'll put it in a big movie, if you sucked his dick, he'll put it in a movie, you know? Like, he kind of followed through on it. So you'd imagine if you're somebody on that level who's kind of doing that, imagine all the people down below. You know what I mean? So it's a very weird place, transactional, full of darkness, full of evil. And you'd hope with something like this being brought to light, that it was gonna, make all the other dark people scurry away under their bunker and sort of like stop doing this bad behavior shit. Because you think back to how old Cassie, that's the thing that really is disturbing. Like, you think back to how old Cassie was going to industry. You think back to how Cassie, because now they're the only thing on run. Nowadays, everything will run. Nowadays, imagine if like, I don't know, imagine if like Pink Pantress was like dating some guy, like a Joe Budden or something. I don't think people would run for it. People would be like, you know what I mean? They'd be talking a lot about it. I think back in the day, Cassie coming to the industry, she already looks very young anyway, right? She already got very young looking features and shit. Back in the day, she even looked like a fucking baby, even though she was like, of age and shit. And then you encounter Diddy. Obviously, her first encounter was Ryan Leslie, but then her second major encounter in the industry is Diddy. And he takes you under his wing, and then he becomes your boyfriend. It's like, oof. I can only imagine the amount of blurred lines and abuse that was happening at that time. It's fucking crazy, man. And no one stepped in. Years of abuse, years of physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. Nobody stepped in. Nobody stepped in and tried to, quote unquote, save this girl as she was being fucking beaten, manipulated, all this stuff happening in the scene. No one said a thing. The only thing people used to talk about back in the day was Cassie's voice when she used to sing live. Remember? Like, oh, she can't sing live. She can't sing live. When she shaved her head. Oh my God, what the fuck is that fashion? When she'd disappear. Remember that? She'd disappear. If you were around back then, you'd know. Cassie would disappear for ages. She'd go like ghost for like 6 months and then pop back up again. And then we found out later, after the fact, with all this case going on, that the reason why she disappeared was because she was getting beaten black and blue. She had to recover. She had to recover and heal from her injuries because she was getting bruised up and shit. She was getting beaten up, so she had to recover and come back. So it really is fucking crazy. And so to see her now, and to see her like with a husband, with kids and shit, living a fulfilled, happy life, it's a miracle, bro. It doesn't end this way usually. People that know who've been in families with domestic abuse, who've heard of domestic abuse cases, it doesn't end too well for the women involved. It gets a bit dark. It gets really dark when obviously a relationship between man and woman, but it gets really fucking dark. It doesn't really end well usually. Usually that person is broken forever, never recover, never has another relationship, is tainted, their impression of men is completely ruined forever. No one really there's never really a happy thereafter story. And who knows? Maybe she's still going through her shit now. But on paper, from the outside looking in, sorry, it does look like she has moved on with her life in a good direction. So you can only give her props for doing so. So big up her for putting her face in it. And again, think about it, right? The only reason why this case happened is because of Cassie. All those years of abuse, and the only reason why this case even got brought to court was because of Cassie. You know? She was brave enough to say something in the end and essentially call it out, and then, you know, up come all the other victims, and they obviously spoke and testified too. But if it wasn't for Cassie, no one would have known about this, in the public anyway. I'm sure behind the scenes, behind closed doors, it was one of the worst kept secrets and shit. But fucking hell, man. Big up Cassie, man. Big up blood clot Cassie. But one of the funniest pictures to come out of this is this illustration, allegedly of Diddy in the courtroom as his sentence is being read out, or as the statements are going. No, I think the statements are going through. I think it's the statements from his children. He's allegedly under the table, pounding the chair and crying, sobbing into the chair as his kids give testimony, whatever evidence that he's a good dad. I think that's the opposite of being a good dad. I'm not gonna lie. I think Diddy making his kids come to court to that support, because I think that's what happened, right? I think they went to paint him out to be the good guy and the family guy. So I'm sure his lawyers and shit agreed to have his whole family come to court. Every single day there's a court. Every time there's a court date, his family were there. All of his kids. Sometimes his kids were even there when the fucking sex workers and prostitutes, the fucking gigolos were there giving their evidence. I think they left halfway through, but they have to listen to all that shit. Making your kids have to listen to all that shit, stand by all that shit is horrendous. It's not really helped anybody. Like, look at Christian Combs. Christian Combs is dating that girl called Raven, who used to date Ian Connor. And look at the damage it's done to them online. It's made them look fucking crazy when really it's nothing to do with them. Like, because people are like, oh yeah, that Raven girl used to date Ian Connor. Ian Connor's got his allegations about him doing some R-word stuff. And now she's dating Christian, whose dad is Diddy, who did, you know what I mean? It's made all the kids look mad crazy. Now, if any of those girls stand up, if any of those girls later in the future decide to get up on their soapbox and start talking about feminism or start talking about girl boss shit, everyone's going to point to their dad and be like, hold on. How can you be talking about feminism when your dad's, you know what I mean? So it's made all his kids look crazy and they have nothing to do with it. So I think that's the opposite of being a good dad. So I think even until the very, very end, he was showcasing very, very narcissistic tendencies, you know? It was all about him. Nobody else was important. He had to make sure he kind of get off on it. There was really no remorse. I don't think so. I think if he would have got out, you would have saw him talking his shit. I think if he would have got out on that day, you would have seen Diddy talking his shit. He would not have been remorseful. He would have been talking his shit, flexing as well. So I think the prison sentence, although it's short, although there's a suggestion that he may come out this time next year, October, if he's well behaved and shit with time served, I think the fact that he has to go to prison is enough of a deterrent, will be enough of a lesson that it would drive the message home. And when he does finally come out, you'll see a different person. But I think if he would have come out on the day of sentencing, he would have let his nuts hang, bro. He would have been out here talking his shit, popping his shit. But the fact that he has to sit down, I think that'll definitely send a message. And for the people out there who are engaging in Diddy-like activities, it will also give them a moment to pause. And be like, you know what? I don't want this. Because this guy's going to prison in his 50s. In his 50s. That is mad. Going to prison in your 50s is fucking crazy. Being known as a sex pest, as a creep in your 50s, allow it. But big up them, big up Cassie, big up all the victims for speaking. Nice to see.